November, what's today, 9th, 2022. It is 6:02, and we will begin with the Pledge of Allegiance given by Mr. Knutson.
States of America, and to the republic for which one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Okay, we will start with now a brief rundown of our agenda tonight before we have our roll call. We have 4 items on our agenda. 3 of them are legislative, which means that we are making a recommendation tonight, and then we will forward that recommendation to the city council to be heard by the city council. And then one of them is administrative, which means we will be making a decision tonight. We will now have a roll call. If each of the commissioners would state your name and then state whether you have any conflicts with any of the items on the agenda.
Melissa Kendall, no conflicts.
Raylene Walling, no conflicts.
Lisa Jensen, no conflicts.
Robert Knudsen, no conflicts.
Jeff Whitlock, no conflicts.
Andrew South, no conflicts.
Thank you. Okay, let's go straight into item number 1. Provo City Public Works requests approval of an ordinance text amendment to section 15.03.0203 Provo City Code to update 2022 standards to 2023 standards. This has citywide application, and Mr. David Day of the engineering department will present it to us.
Thank you. My name is David Day. I'm with Public Works Engineering. So some of you may have seen me before on this exact same item a year ago. Some of you may have not been here a year ago. So let me just kind of give a brief overview of what we're doing here. Each year, as we work with developers, engineers, contractors, we take feedback from them about what they like and don't like about our standards. We keep track of those. And then each year we update our standards for the next calendar year, and we bring those to you to approve those each year. So the first year it was a lot of work. Each subsequent year it's got easier and easier. This year we've modified 26 pages out of the thousands of pages of standards. So we've narrowed it down quite a bit. Out of those 26 pages, I think we deleted 5 or 6. Can you go to that memo, Rachel? It has kind of a breakdown of all of the changes. There we go. So as it says on here, 15 of the pages were clarified in our standard drawings. That's the drawings of like curb, gutter, pipes, like a water meter and stuff like that. 6 pages were removed completely. So out of those 26, 20 actually remain. The 5 were edited in our design development design standards, and that's the extent of our changes. I can go through all of those changes with you in detail, or I can do it summarize it depending on what you want to see. I have a document that has all 26 pages and what changed on each page. But you've probably already seen that because it was in your package that went out. So
Actually wasn't.
It wasn't.
So I was going to recommend that maybe you could show us a couple pages just so we could get an idea.
Can you go to that other PDF document? Thank you, Rachel. There we go. That's the second page of the, there we go. So These first two pages are a sewer manhole. This is the text of the document. And then go to the next page. Yeah, right there. This is the actual drawing of a sewer manhole. And really all that's changed on here is the number 4 to a 5 right there. And the previous page is just giving more explanation of the 4 to the 5. So that's really the change on that one. Can you go to the next page down? Sewer lateral, just making it clear that grinder pumps have to be approved before somebody tries to install it. We've had a lot of contractors that I guess I would say from my perspective, don't know what they're doing. They'll just go to a resident and say, hey, this is what you need. We can normally figure a way out of putting in a grinder pump in a home because we see that as a nuisance to the homeowner having to maintain that forevermore and buy a new one every 5 years. And we want to avoid those as much as possible. So we're trying to protect homeowners in that particular change. You go to the next one. This is just Xing out a sewer drop manhole. We're eliminating that. To the next one. And then the language that goes with the sewer drop. So go to the next one. I'm going to have a hard time seeing some of these changes. Oh, this is the 1-inch meter. We no longer accept a 3/4 inch meter in new water line installations for a service. So it's just saying it's a 1 inch. So the next one. We changed it from our public works line to the 311 line because that has more coverage than our desk does. So 311 calls get answered and then they can relay them to the appropriate people. So that's the only change there. Little bit of change to the water meter assembly right here. Next one. I hope this is interesting for all of you. Just a little bit of change to the supporting document there. The pipe support has to be an adjustable pipe support so that if the pipe flexes a little bit, it doesn't crack and break. So next one. This is our site distance triangles for intersections and driveways. We have adjusted this a little bit to more closely reflect industry standard and our city ordinance and try to make it clearer so people can see what to do a little better and identify that street trees can't be in that corner area either. So
I think that's a good sampling. Thank you.
yeah.
I just wanted to make sure that all of us were, especially those who weren't here last year when you went through them, that we had an idea of what we were recommending or not recommending for approval. So
Okay.
does that give everyone, commissioners, does that give you a good idea of what the language
Yeah,
changes are?
That's kind of the idea of what you'll see the rest of this whole document. If there's any, this is interesting to me anyway. Keep going a little bit. All of it's interesting to me because I'm weird, but go down a little bit, Rachel, sorry.
This is where it gets exciting, everyone.
Part of the documents that were, keep going, that were removed from the standard drawings to the next page were consolidating some of these road cross-section, intersection drawings with tables. So go down like maybe 2 more pages. One more. So you can see the A and that stopped right there, the A and B. So we got rid of like 4 drawings by just putting a table like that. Though we don't have a different one for each drawing. We just put A and B and they can get the measurements. So anyway. that's as exciting as it gets.
That was pretty cool.
The remove X, I love the remove X. That's pretty easy edit right there. Just put an X on it. So A and B's. So
I had one question for you.
okay.
And the bullet points in the memo that was the staff report, the first bullet point says proposed ordinance text amendment text. Is that just what you're showing us? For plot A 20220333.
Yeah, we can pull those up for you.
Is that just the language that you just showed us that's being changed?
So the language in the actual text to the ordinance text amendment was a Word document, and all it does is change the number 2022 to 2023.
Okay.
And that's what changes in our city ordinance. Then our city ordinance references these drawings that you're looking at.
So it basically is just updating the engineering standards so that they apply for the coming year.
Yeah. Yeah. We have a whole bunch of other references in the city code, but none of those have changed. There will be one changing in December at the end of the year. The APWA 2017 will have an update to 2023. That's not published yet. So when that gets published, we'll probably have to come back and do that update to our ordinance again, adopting that new document when it comes out. That's 2 separate volumes, 1,000 pages and about 300 pages. So
Thanks for not having us read that.
I'm trying to save you all of that, but I hope I'm not abbreviating too much. If you want more, I can dive in. So with this, we have the proposed clean copy, which will be the actual what you'll be adopting. It's just taking all these edits, and you won't know what changed because it'll just be a black and white. There won't be any color to it for both our standard drawings and our development to design standards.
Awesome. Commissioners, do you have any questions for Mr. Day? Okay. Since the applicant is the city, we do not need to have the applicant come forward and speak. So we will be ready for public comment on this item. Is there anyone here that's a neighborhood chair that would like to speak to the design standards for the engineering that have just for public works that has just been presented? Are there any community members that aren't neighborhood chairs that would like to come speak to this item? Okay, I think it's fair to say no one is going to make a comment on this. Commissioners, do we have any discussion that we would like to have before we entertain a motion? Okay, then. Do we have a motion on this item? Mr. Knudsen.
Would propose that we forward a positive recommendation to the city council for item number 1. Provo City Public Works Department has requested ordinance text amendments to sections 15.03.0203 of the Provo City Code to update the engineering design standards for 2023 as citywide application.
Okay, we have a motion to forward a positive recommendation to the city council. Any discussion? I think we need a second before I call for
I'll
discussion.
second.
Okay, we've got a second by Mr. Whitlock. Any discussion on the motion? Okay. Melissa.
Aye.
Reen.
Aye.
Ovo, aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Okay, that's 6 votes in favor of forwarding a positive recommendation to the city council for item 1 as stated. Thank you, Mr. Day. All right, item 2. This one is administrative, which means we will be making a decision on it tonight. Bob Jones requests a variance through the Planning Commission. See subsection 15.07.010 of the Provo City Code to impact slopes exceeding 30% for a proposed residential development located at approximately 379 East, 4900 North in the R110 zone. This is in the North Timpview neighborhood, and Mr. Pepperoni will be presenting it to us tonight.
Thank you. Members of the Planning Commission, you heard this request originally on the 28th of September, 2022. At that time, the staff report submitted to you recommended approval of the variance request because it was the understanding of the staff at the time that the only available alignment to get water to phase 2 of the subdivision was to affect the 30% slopes as proposed by the developer. In that meeting, the staff asked you to continue the item for 2 reasons. One was so that the developer would have the opportunity to submit to the city engineering department division information they had previously asked for. And the second reason was so staff could look at other possible alternatives for a water line that would not impact 30% slopes. Subsequent to that meeting, the staff met with nearby property owners, and we did identify an alternative that does not affect the slopes. Therefore, the recommendation of the staff at this time is for denial of the original variance request because there is an alternative available that does not impact 30% slopes. The property that you see outlined there in the blue is phase 2 of the preserve on Canyon Road, and it's now called the Ascent subdivision. Really can't see it when I point with this, sorry. Thank you, Rachel. This kind of puts it in context of the larger area. The black line is the developer's proposal. Would you trace the black line, please, Rachel? The hashed marked area, that's the 30% slope. So you can see where it's cutting through it. The red line up above is the staff's alternative that we've identified. Here's another example of the developer's proposal. It doesn't show the staff alternative, but it's the developer's original proposal. These are some engineering drawings that you may or may not want engineering to go through. But at this point, members of the Planning Commission and staff recommends denial of the variance request.
Would you talk about the permission from the owners? Did I just zone that out when you said that, or did you not say that? In this memorandum, it says staff was successful in obtaining permission from owners for water lines that will not impact 30% slopes.
Yes, so one of those owners is Tony Brown, and he's here in the room, and he's the property immediately to the north. Another owner is the development company that owns quite a bit of land up in this area. They have a development application in that is for 40 acres further to the north. They've got a lot of other property that's in the county, so it's in the unshaded area. Just for your reference, what's colored is in the city. What's uncolored is in the county. So that development company owns land both in the city and in the county. And it's primarily those 2 property owners that this would go through. Mr. Brown is here, and a representative of that group is also here.
Could you show us on the black line on the map, is part of that water line already there? And there were 2 drawings. So this black line goes all the way through, but then there's another one where there's a light blue and a dark blue. Is it only the dark blue that's the new one and the light blue already exists?
I'm going to let David Day, our city engineer, describe these.
Because you had the staff report, the memo says that the city's proposal is even more affordable than the developer's proposal. So that's a positive for what the city has been able to work out.
Yes, a big reason for that is the developer's proposal proposes 3 retaining walls, significant retaining walls. Those would no longer be necessary, so that's a big part of that savings. But anyway.
The red line, as Bill mentioned, it was the one that staff worked on. The black one was developer's proposal that cuts through the 30% slope. What was your question?
So in the other drawing where the black line is blue instead, there's two different shades of blue. Does that indicate that that eastern spur is already there and it's just the one that's going to the west?
There's nothing there
Nothing's there at all.
currently.
Okay.
Yeah, this is all new construction up here. There is some water lines up on the cemetery property, but all of the stuff that we're trying to represent with these drawings would be all new.
Thank you. Commissioners, do you have any question for Mr. Pepperoni or Mr. Day on this item? Mr.
Dave?
Knudsen?
Over here where the red line, right-hand side, the water line comes from, it's flowing north till it gets to that point, and then that's where
Yeah,
the two different varieties start, or the two different lines start.
yeah.
I mean,
So
your proposal and the builder's
the
proposal.
city's proposal would be to take it where the black line currently is and then divert on to the red line. And then it comes up along and then down a proposed road alignment for this other development to the north, and then cuts through across to a road that would be stubbed out of the proposed subdivision right here. So all of this water line would be in a public road eventually, not currently, but eventually. And that is our standard, to put water lines in public roads. It's just the best practice for maintaining them. Normally people who front that road get their utilities off of that water line. When we go cross country, we can't maintain them and no one's able to hook up to them in front of their home. So
Mr. Whitlock?
Thank you. My question is why, if this is cheaper, why is the developer not withdrawing the request?
Maybe we can wait till the developer talks to us and we'll ask him that again.
All right,
How's that
I'm
sound?
just throwing that out there.
I didn't get involved in the cost, but there are a lot of factors involved in putting a permanent line in a permanent road, an eventual road, and as well as having cooperation from other owners that are seeking the same solutions to their property development by utilizing the same water system. So any other questions for me?
Commissioners, any other question for staff?
Yeah, one last, what's the max grade that this new plan goes through? I think you showed a chart, it's like no more than 15%, right?
So this shaded area is 30%. So what was your question?
Never mind. It's in the, I just saw the report. It's a max grade of 15%.
This road alignment coming down here is currently laid out at about a 12% grade going up that canyon.
Thank you. Okay. We now will have the developer come forward, and my question for you as you speak is, do you have anything to present that the staff hasn't covered, or any clarifications that you'd like to make on the information that's been presented?
I do.
Okay, tell us your name.
My name is Bob Jones, and I own property at approximately 4800 North Canyon Road. What the staff has presented is just simply not accurate or true. The cost to put that red line road in is about 10 times more than the proposal that I've made. Secondly, it does go across 30% slopes. And to balance it and make it a 12% slope to meet Provo City's requirements, you either have to lower the top of it 80 feet or raise the bottom of it 80 feet, which is way cost prohibitive. Now, to run that red line, I don't necessarily need permission from anybody. We have a signed agreement with the group to the north. I don't know what they're calling themselves now. I think it's Provo Canyon Estates. That I actually crafted with Bruce Baird as a representative for them and signed with the Groves, and then I purchased it from the Groves, which requires them to pay for the improvement. But it just doesn't work. We presented this to the city, 3 years ago, and they turned it down, and I've met with Shane Jones as recently as 4 months ago on this very alignment, and he told me it doesn't work. So what, in my estimation, what the city's trying to do with the red line is put me into a quagmire where I have to negotiate with the people to the north because I have all the access to the water. So zoning isn't designed to blackmail landowners. And that's what they're trying to do here, is put me into a situation where we're just going to argue and fight, and there'll never be a road there. First of all, and second of all, it doesn't work on that alignment, according to the rules of Provo City. No matter what staff is saying tonight, it's simply not true. It does not work. Now, there is an alignment that could work, but it involves a lot of other property owners. I don't know if we'll ever get to it or not. The alignment that I've proposed with the variance is the only alignment that is available to me today. My property is zoned. I'm entitled to that pathway. And we're prepared to take it to law, which we're 100% will support us. Now, we don't want to sue anybody. But damn it, let us hook up our water. I spent a lot of money to get the water to that point. It's mine to use. Please be fair. Do you have any questions for me?
Commissioners, any questions for Mr. Jones?
Yeah, could you explain what you mean by the alignment? Just,
the red
explain
line right there.
Here.
So what you've got is right there in the middle where you've got the 30, right there in the middle where you have the 30% slope that you'd have to cross to get the correct width.
Width of what? The pipe?
The width for a road.
Okay, for a road.
You'd have to take out some of that 30%.
Gotcha.
By putting that pipe in there, you're setting the city up so that it is going to have to allow the road to take out the 30% eventually. Okay, we don't want to do that. We just want to develop our 14 lots down at the bottom. We don't care about the people to the north. In an odd way, we care about Tony Brown. We want him to be able to do what he wants. He's a very nice man, right? So we don't mind making that available to him under the right circumstances, but there's negotiation that has to take place. But this red line alignment will take 2 years to get approved. And that's not, so the city staff is saying, well, we're offering an alternative. No, they're not. Provo City cannot give me a letter tomorrow that says, no matter what happens during the engineering phase, we're going to allow you to put that in there. I asked them for that. They won't even respond. So if Provo City was, and Utah County, by the way, both entities, both bureaucracies, municipalities, have to give me a letter like that, then maybe you're giving me an option. Until you do that, there's no option here. That's just the municipalities. Then I've got to negotiate with all the landowners. I'm not going to give them the water for free. I've spent $2 million acquiring that water. I'm not going to just give it to them. They think, but what's happening here is a little blackmail to put me in a quagmire, and I'm not gonna stand for it.
So you said that staff report says this will be a less expensive alternative.
That's crazy.
You said it's 10x.
That's insane.
Okay,
Yeah.
I don't want to judge either way. I mean, I want to judge, but not use.
It's 10 times more expensive.
Okay,
Just
can
because
you help
of
me
the,
under just
the balancing of the sites.
Yeah, can you
Right.
just walk through like your estimation and kind of how you come up with that 10x number, please?
Well, to run the pipe here is going to cost me about $300,000. To run that pipe up there on the road is going to be about $3 million.
Assuming that you're constructing road, or is it because the pipe's longer? Just help me understand it, please.
It's the balancing of the site. So to meet the requirements of Provo City, and this is why we didn't do it initially, you can't have more than a 12% slope. Right? You guys understand that, right? That's 22% in a couple of places. So you have to bring the top down 80 feet or bring the bottom up. Maybe bring the top down 40 feet and bring the bottom up 40
You're talking,
feet.
this is across the width,
Yeah,
the length.
Yeah, the length. It's so much higher at the top that you can't make it work without balancing the site.
I see.
Then you got the Smiths, particularly Alan Smith, who's, there's going to be a road 20 feet high in front of his house. He doesn't want that. I've talked to him on numerous occasions. Geez, I thought he was going to kill me one day. I mean, he was so upset. We were talking about how we got to raise the road, right? My view. And I don't blame him. So all we're trying to do is develop these 14 lots down here. That's all. I don't want to solve everybody in the world's problems for them. And I'm not going to.
But just so I understand correctly, even though this red line doesn't at any particular point does not go more than 15% grade, you're saying the overall length is such that you have to bring it down so that the overall pipe is balanced. Is that the simple way to say what you're saying?
Yeah, the statement that the road never goes over 12% on that alignment is not true without a massive reorganization of the site. Plus, they want to run it right through developable property of mine. Somebody's got to pay for that.
Can you state that one more time? They want to run it through.
The red line wipes out about 2 lots of my property. The lots are worth about $1.5 million a piece. You factor that in on top of the $3 million, and that's a $6 million project. And then they want me to give it to everybody else. I'm not going to do it. Everybody who's in the real estate development business knows who our attorney is. And everybody knows that he knows the rules probably better than most staffs in cities because he's written most of them. And he assures me that we're 100% winners on this. I take that for fact. I think that the city should approve the variance. And I would be happy to continue to work with the city if they'll work quickly to find another alignment. And there is one for the water line that works. I presented it to them. Today, they tried to get me to forestall the meeting saying they're going to put it in engineering. But it doesn't need to go to engineering. It's obvious. It obviously works and doesn't affect any 30% slopes. But if we don't approve the variance tonight, I'm going to take other action. I just have to. It's time. I've been trying to work with the city for 2 years. I have multiple letters from staff members telling me that what we've submitted is good and they're going to approve it. I even had a staff member write a customer of mine an email on Provo, with the Provo logo saying that, hey, they're approved and the water line that they've submitted is good. Because we're really not even on 30% slope there. That map's inaccurate. That's fill. To which the city issued a letter to the people who own the property saying, hey, fix this. So we go to fix it. And then they come in here and tell you that I'm doing things I'm not supposed to. It's crazy. We just want to develop 14 lots. We're not even developing them to the full extent. We could get 18. We just want 14 lots. We've spent a lot of money to get the water. We've done everything right. We've tried to work with the city. We've listened to them insist that we've done everything that we need to do. This idea that I haven't turned things into the city is nuts. I spent $160,000 engineering 14 lots. Should have cost me 20 grand because the city keeps changing its mind. We're done trying. I know every nook and cranny of that property, and I know what'll work and what won't work. That red line, never going to happen. Not without going through a 30% slope. And if you're going to grant that variance, why not grant this variance?
Any other questions for Mr. Jones? Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Do we have a neighborhood chair that is here from the North Timpview neighborhood? Do we have it?
It can't be here tonight.
It looks like we maybe have another neighborhood chair that would like to speak. We will give the neighborhood chair 3 minutes, and then when we open it up for public comment, we will give public 2 minutes.
My name's Sharon Mem, and I am the area rep for the area. And Bonnie did ask me to come and speak to this. Mostly, I appreciated at the last meeting that you read the names of the letters that you received.
I'm going to do that before
a
public comment. Would you like me to do it before you start?
Whichever.
Go ahead,
because
and then I'll read
mostly-
afterwards.
Mostly my comments would be that I've read those same letters and I appreciate the things that were brought up. And so I think they were good points to be brought up. I appreciate Mr. Pepperone's alternatives that they've come up with. He also mentioned boring as something else. And a comment was made to me, but I don't know if it's true about him being asked to bond, but that he's has issues with bonding, and I don't know what they are. And I know nothing further than that. So I would just say thank you for reading the names of people you've heard from and so that we don't have to keep using so much of your time for this. Thank you.
Thanks. Okay, before public comes forward, the letters that all of us have received are from Carl and Carolyn McKay, or Mackey, Julie and Brian Hollingworth, Peter and Angela Morick, Greg and Joe Rita Nielsen, Rick and Deborah Schwarting. There were 2 other emails that only I received, so you can assume that those have not been received by everyone on the commission. Okay, 2 minutes. We've heard this item once before, and we understand that the public sentiment is still very much the same. This item was continued until further information was received, so it'd be most useful if the comments we hear tonight address this new information and not rehash previous issues that have already been thoroughly covered. Okay, tell us your name and your address.
So I'm Angela Maurik at 5163 North Canyon Road, but I've been asked to read an email that came in last minute for somebody else.
Okay.
So these are their words. So I don't know if it's rehashing. Hello, decision makers. Thank you for your service to our community. I recognize that each of you take time from your life to review this information and make tough decisions. I attended the Provo City planning hearing on September 28th, where the developer was instructed to revisit and check on alternative water routes to the building site. 2 questions. Has that happened and what was found? Also, I'm curious about the environmental impact and geologic hazard in the case of this variance being requested. Further, a statement of concern. I am a future resident of the Preserve on Canyon Road and a current citizen of the Mazer neighborhood, where I've lived for the past 10 and a half years. At the Provo City planning hearing on the 28th, my future neighbors made their statements, and some were about the water basin that had previously been built at the city's behest by former owner David Brotherson ahead of the building of Preserve Phase 1. Then the developer's attorney stood and explained that the former owner had built the water basin on someone else's property. This timeline that the attorney stated was inaccurate, and it matters as to whether the developer was informed of the risks at the time of purchase. All signs point to this information was easily available. When I bought my lot in August 2020, there were hopes of Phase 2 from the developer at the time. David Brotherson, the developer at the time, mentioned to us then that there were some complications and they were unsure about whether a phase 2 would be permitted and built out. Dave Brotherson was the owner then. As the next owner bought the land, then the water basin was on different owner's property. So the attorney statement from the former owner that the former owner had built the water basin on another's property should be questioned, as that water basin does matter to those of us in Preserve Phase 1. There are other alternatives to getting water to the site requesting the variance. If there are no longer available to the developer, why is that? I ask because this seems to be something the developer has control over without a variance being granted. If that is no longer the option, perhaps that is part of the risk the developer knowingly took.
Time?
Should I tell you who this is from?
From.
Tanae Henry, not
Okay.
sure how to pronounce it. And that's it.
Thank you.
Do you want this copy? This.
I can answer questions on the debris basin more directly. I've spent a lot of time with dam safety over the last 3 weeks.
We're going to hear public comment and then we will have any clarifications from, thank you. Thank you.
My name is Scott Smith. I live at 5440 North Canyon Road, about a mile up the road from here. I'm also the ditch master and on the board of directors for Smith Ditch Company, which traverses the proposed development. About a year ago, I facilitated our ditch company being a member of Blue Stakes, and we've located the ditch line in this area. I had a request from the city, the planning commission, the powers that be, that when work is done on that ditch, that we are afforded the same consideration for a water line on the bottom end of what we call the preserves. I'm not sure what this development goes by title, but they worked on the line that services the Johnson, Verl Cook, Glacier, Pitts. I don't know how many people are on that. It's the old city aquifer. And the planning commission, the city council with the engineering department worked with the contractor so that work was done outside the irrigation season. If you follow this map to the bottom and go further, which you don't have a picture of, but it goes further to the south, you have, I believe it's 6 shareholders, and that would affect their water to do work on that ditch during the middle of the season and to interrupt it. When you open the line, there's no guarantee it's going to get back in service at whatever given period of time. You could work on it between November 1st and April 1st and not affect the ditch company. That was my only comment, that you would consider that and that we would have the same situation as Johnson's and Cook's had.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So I've also been asked to read a letter that came in last minute from Morgan Sparenborg. I'm quickly sending this your way as it looks like my husband will be stuck in the operating room completing some surgeries. I understand this area has been zoned for residential development and Bob Jones would love to develop and get return from his investment. I can completely understand, of course, while he would want to do this, and I think, yes, some of the area on the more level areas right near where current homes are should be permitted to be developed if he can indeed get water safely to these properties. We've watched this gentleman this past year bring in many truckloads of sand to dump in the back area of the property. We also have watched him continue to work without a permit, digging and unearthing the hillside of Eastland Cemetery. It's a little worrisome about how secure building on sand will be. I'm also a little nervous and sad about the idea of seeing the hillsides completely developed. There's a family of owls that live in the trees just beyond our neighborhood, and it will be sad to see that tree go and their home. It's also been sad to see the trails back there get dug up and see what used to be areas for walker and bikers now not accessible. It's great to see Provo develop, but why don't we leave these very, very difficult areas, very difficult and somewhat dangerous to develop areas, to be something that could be used as recreation space? We keep expanding more housing, more people, and keep taking away from where people can go and recreate locally. It would be nice to see if somehow the steeper slope canyon areas could be purchased and turned into community recreation opportunities. Thank you for your time. I appreciate it. And I did want to add that I forgot to thank the staff for reaching out and facility and getting permissions from those other property owners. Thank you.
Thank you. Can you give that to Mr. Pepperoni? Any other public comment that would like to speak to the new information tonight?
Boyd Lovelace. I live at 5069 North Canyon Road, Provo. I don't have an objection to this. I can't see why Provo City is saying that it's going to go on a road that's going to be developed, that may happen, that's been happening for at least 60 years of my life. Bob has a right to develop that property. I don't know that it has to go through that 30% cut. I don't know why it can't go down the gully where the road's supposed to go. I don't know why it needs to affect a whole bunch of people. Most of that property is owned by Bob and East Lawn. So why not take it down the gully? I would like Bob to answer that and he can have the rest of my time.
Any more public comment?
I'm Debbie Schwarting, and you have Rick and Debbie Schwarting's letter. This is a different question for our engineers now that we know per Bob Jones that they're lying. I want to know, and my husband wants to know, and the whole preserve would like to know. We don't think the city engineers are liars, and we would like them put to the test on this area that Bob Jones is now going to talk about, the fill. We have walked up to the cemetery for 10, maybe 20 years, and we have watched the cemetery fill and fill and fill with debris into that area that he wants to just cut right down to. That area is why that catch basin was there. It's a big deal to us in the preserve. Our lots weren't worth $1 million, but our homes are plus, and we sit right below it. In fact, Rick and Debbie Schwarting sit right below the catch basin. It was shocking to us when it went up. When we found out why, we were very grateful, and we thank the city engineers that said it was important. If it was important then, it's important now. This is a big problem for us. No matter where they put the road, it's the lots there, or the water, it's the lots they're developing. And the danger that that puts us in if that debris basin is not correctly taken care of. Thank you for listening to us. That we want it developed. We'd love to have it be phase 2 of the preserve. We'd be excited to have homes go in there, except for maybe an owl tree. But I'd like the engineers to look at that, and I would trust them that they're trying their very best to do what is right. And they're not lying outright to us.
Thank you.
Thank you for what you do.
Anyone else like to make any public comment about this item? Okay. I would first of all like to ask staff if you would like to make any clarifications based on the things that have been said since you last took the podium. Would you like to do that, or should I ask the developer to respond? Okay, Mr. Jones.
Okay, let's start with the debris basin. So the staff has been trying to insist that I go visit dam safety and get the replacement debris basin certified as a dam. I fought that and fought it and told them we're not building a dam. We read through the dam safety guidebook and we sent it over to the staff, and nobody could tell me why we qualify as a dam. So I went in and I met with dam safety. The head of dam safety wouldn't meet with me at first. He had a associate come meet with me. I met with him for about a half an hour. It was a good meeting. He explained a lot of things to me. First of all, what a dam is, right? Because nobody could answer the question. Not staff, not my attorney, not my engineer. Nobody knew, even reading the guidebook. So it turns out that dam safety is more of a suggestive body than a regulatory agency. And there's really only three things that determine whether you have a dam or not. The first one is safety of life. Obviously the most important, right? And the second one is that your dam holds more than 20 acre feet of debris. I'm not sure what the regulated time frame is offhand, but we weren't anywhere close to that. And then the third, now, if you don't hit those first two qualifications, then you could qualify as a small dam. And the only thing that qualifies you as a small dam is if you build a wall up. If you dig down, it's a pond or a lake. And dam safety doesn't review that because it's not dangerous, right? Does that make sense? That's all there is to a dam, right? So I went in there with my plan and I met, after I left the 30-minute meeting, I'm driving up to Mountain Green and I get a call from dam safety. And they said, oh, hey, could you come back? And I said, well, I'm about a half an hour away, but I'd be happy to turn around. They had their whole staff in. They said, we got the weirdest call from Provo City. And they were insisting that you come in and get certified as a dam. We'd never had a call like that before. And I was a little nervous to meet with you until we reviewed the plans and talked with you. Now we kind of understand what's going on. They said, if you make this two little changes, you don't qualify as a dam in any way, big dam, small dam. And I said, gosh, that's crazy. But the debris basin down at the bottom of the hill is built up. They said, what debris basin? So we pulled it up on Google and we looked it over and they said, my goodness, I think this is a major dam. Nobody came to us to get that certified and nobody did the proper studies. And it's really close to houses. Holy smokes, there might be life in danger. Funny turn of events, right? So what I want to replace the debris basin with is not a dam. What the debris basin that used to exist there, and about 25% exists there now, is a dam. So even though we're going to be asking the preserve as an HOA and its old developer to help cover the cost and the people to the north of the new debris basin, which is not a dam, we'd be replacing something that's illegal and always has been and was an afterthought, wasn't part of the original preserve. It was something that they noticed after the fact. And they tricked the lady into, she thought she was giving access to a debris basin, not access for a debris basin. That's the way it was explained to her. And she was just trying to be a nice neighbor. When she went on a vacation, they hurried up without doing any of the testing, and they threw that debris basin there and told the people in the preserve that they were helping them out. Really, what they've done is they've risked their lives. And we're prepared to prove that too. I hope that answers the questions about the debris basin. Now, the issues on the red road being at 12% or not are easy to prove. We've had We've had it flown. We've done a 3D model. We've met with staff about it, and staff knows that what they're saying is not true. They know it. There is a possibility that you could get an alignment in there, but it's a couple of years away. It's not a possibility that they can say that they're giving me. What it's doing is it's saving the property owners to the north's ass. And zoning is not designed for me to be blackmailed to help someone else out at no cost. I refuse publicly to do it. Okay, so the gentleman's question of why can't you run the water line down the gully? I have made a proposal to the city on a way to run the water line down the gully and not touch any 30% slope. They won't even talk about it until this morning. They told me it was in for review this morning, so let's postpone this meeting. They've been trying to postpone me for a month and a half. Keep calling me, oh, we're doing this, oh, we're doing that. And then we get past that and, oh, wait, we got to do this. Oh, we got to do that. I don't know why they're trying to postpone me. Maybe they're doing the same thing they did on the property to the north. They're trying to write some new laws that prohibits it. I don't know. But I can put a water line down that gully. Here, I got a picture for you. This doesn't require any variance at all. The staff could approve it fine. 100% compliant. Solves the problem and is actually by far the cheapest solution. With the one through the so-called 30% slope cost me about $300. This one for about $189 grand. The only thing it would require is Tony Brown's permission. So we take that water line right down the curb of the 30% slope and right between Tony Brown's riding corral, right into the PUE that exists between mine and Tony Brown's property. 8-inch line, hooks in exactly the same way. It's perfectly compliant, no 30% slope at any time. And staff could sign off on it tomorrow if they wanted to. For some reason, they haven't even wanted to talk about it until today.
Is that the water line down the gully that you're referring to, this drawing you just gave us?
You see the blue line?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the water line.
Doesn't that include most of that red line, the line of that picture? I mean, they follow that same red line that they're proposing.
No, it snugs up against the hill quite a bit more.
Okay.
And then comes down on the south
Right on the
eastern corner of Tony's property between his riding corral and the 30% slope. It would also allow us in the off season to fix the irrigation line that runs out on Tony's property and consolidate it. And we would work with the Smith ditch to do whatever was reasonable. If they want an upgrade, I'd be happy to put the upgrade in as long as they were willing to pay for it.
Thank you. I'm going to have staff give us their further feedback too.
You bet.
Thank you, Mr. Jones.
So the one thing Mr. Jones has said that I would agree with is that he did turn in an alternative plan that appears not to impact 30% slope. That plan was turned in on Monday by the Planning Commission bylaws. When that happens, when a developer submits an alternative plan before the item can get before the Planning Commission, when it's already been scheduled for a hearing and you're looking at one plan and now a new plan's been thrown in, by your bylaws, staff gets 2 weeks to review that. That plan came in on Monday.
October
So
Mr.
staff.
Jones, I'm going to let him talk now. Thank you.
We'll get you your chance in a second.
No, he won't. The developer's spoken. He's had 2 turns. Okay. The staff is reviewing that plan. If the plan doesn't impact 30% slope as it's been represented, it won't come before you. The only reason why you have a request before you is because the request before you needs a variance. Okay. It seems very confusing, contradictory to me that Mr. Jones is pursuing a variance for one alignment, but has submitted another alignment that doesn't need a variance. Okay. We believe the variance should be denied. If the new alternative can be approved by engineering and meets their standards, great. Especially great if it doesn't impact 30% slopes. But staff hasn't had sufficient time to review that. Mr. Jones represented that there was some delay because this is going to require approval from Utah County. It doesn't. It's a city water line cutting through the county. We don't need county approvals. I've spoken to the county to verify that. Not only do I know that from my own experience, but I spoke to the county myself to verify that we don't need some special approval from the county for a water line that starts in the city, goes through the county and goes back into the city. Okay. That's all I have.
Thank you. Commissioners, it's our turn to deliberate on this. If anyone has any clarifying questions, you can ask them, but otherwise we can talk about how we feel about the variance request, how we feel about the new information, how we feel about the options before us, which are to, our only decision right now is whether we deny as staff recommended the variance or revisit it as an approval.
So
Just so I can understand, continuance is not an option.
It is, but we would need to have a reason for continuing, like
This
something more that we
new
want to know.
proposal, it would not be a
Well,
reason.
that
for
is a
continuance?
different proposal. What Mr. Pepperoni just explained is that the variance is specific to the proposal. So with a different proposal, there would no longer need to be the variance request. Correct? Comment is closed.
The difference is that
Mr. Jones?
the opposite, the optional
Okay.
alignments require other property owners to.
Bob,
agree.
she told you the comment's closed.
Yeah,
We need to keep order here. So Bob, we need to
Mr.
keep order
Jones,
here.
thank you for your feedback and for your information. We have enough. Okay. Ms. Kendall, you were going to say something.
I was just going to say, we need to frame it in what we actually have authority to do. And what we're been asked to do is create a variance. So based on the city code on variance, there has to be unreasonable hardship for the applicant in order for us to grant a variant. That's one requirement. And the unreasonable hardship in C2, it says, the Board of Adjustment may not find an unreasonable hardship if the hardship is self-imposed or economic. So just to keep that in mind, when we're granting a variance, is the unreasonable hardship self-imposed or economic is one reason to deny it.
What are your feelings on that?
Well, I think we've got some other solutions. So given that fact, all of the other arguments about the money that it costs or the time that it takes, that is not our jurisdiction. Our jurisdiction is to decide whether or not this is unreasonable hardship. And based on the city code, unreasonable hardship may not be economic or self-imposed. So timing and money, to me, don't fit that. So since we have alternatives, I think it becomes fairly clear cut. I mean, I have a lot of questions about all the other stuff. However, if you distill this down, it really is now to me more simple.
Thank you. For those of you who were wondering what Ms. Kendall was referring to, in City Code 14.05.030, item number 9 describes what is required to grant a variance. So we're referring to the guidelines, and all of them, all the criteria must be met for us to grant a variance. That's what she was quoting. Commissioners, any other items for discussion?
I have a question about the code I'd like to ask. What would be a unreasonable hardship if not economic? Just curious. Is that a proper interpretation of that code?
Yeah, I mean, there's lots of different things that could be unreasonable hardship. It could be, for example, if literal enforcement of the code would mean that you can't develop the property at all, might be considered an unreasonable hardship, for example, when it's already been zoned for single family housing. So that's not per se economic. That's more of you can't enjoy the substantial property right. A lot of these things kind of have overlapping principles in them. So for example, in sub 3 or 9B3, it says granting the variance is essential to the enjoyment of substantial property right possessed by other property in the same district. So, again, can't develop the property because of without the variance. You couldn't, so yeah, I mean, that's, I guess, the most obvious thing that comes to mind, but various factual scenarios that that you could find that are not economic related per se, but nevertheless cause an unreasonable hardship. So, I mean, it's a little bit confusing because the Title 15 and Title 14 variances embrace different things, and you're using the same Title 14 standards in deciding this variance. But ultimately, it's about, is this, something caused by the nature of the property itself, or is it something that's self-imposed or purely an economic thing?
Thank you.
I appreciate Ms. Kendall's reminder bringing us back to what we really do have the authority to debate tonight, which is whether this qualifies for a variance. And if we remember, the reason that it was continued back in September was for those two things. And since then, the paperwork has been submitted to the engineering department. Sounds like a couple iterations of it has been submitted. And staff feels that they've come up with a solution that people maybe disagree on whether that's a good solution. But I tend to want to trust the people who are professionals who make these rules and deal with them every day. And so I know emotion gets in the way, and that gives people stronger opinions one way or the other. But I tend to want to believe that the engineering department who makes the guidelines that we're asking to follow would understand what proposal they are saying is doable. There is another option on the table, and it's being reviewed. So I feel like we've got two ideas that now could be pursued. So I'm with Ms. Kendall on the fact that this isn't the only solution, and therefore that would make me think that a variance isn't warranted. So it could be that simple, unless you guys have more angles you want to approach it from.
Yeah, I think for me, the key consideration, because it is zoned to be developed, obviously very, want to respect the property owner's rights to develop the property. Like you said, he's entitled to that, but obviously the 30% rule exists for a good reason, for the integrity of our community and the safety of the other properties below it. So, and then like you mentioned, we only have these 5 criteria to look at. And so to me, the key one is whether or not you're able to enjoy a substantial property right, or it causes a significant hardship. And so I think, given the fact that there is a potential alternative, to me, it does not qualify. Like, that's just my reading of it.
I'd also say that some of the other conditions here that are grounds for granting a variance that we haven't talked about much are the critical hillside zone, whether or not that applies to other areas. This isn't unique to just this parcel. This issue of it in item 4, contrary to the public interest. I mean, I think that's the whole reason why the critical hillside zone was developed. So if it has to meet all 5 of these conditions, I think it falls short on several of them. And so I don't know that there's enough grounds either to do that, especially when we know there are other options that are being considered. So.
Okay. Any other discussion, commissioners? Okay. If no one has any more questions or discussion, I would be willing to entertain a motion on this item.
Make the motion.
Ms. Kendall,
Bob Jones requests a I make a motion. Bob Jones requests a variance through the Planning Commission to impact slopes exceeding 30% for proposed residential development located at approximately 379 East, 4900 North in the R1.1 zone, North Timpview neighborhood. And I make a motion that the variance be denied.
okay, we have a motion to deny the variance. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Ms. Wallen has seconded the motion to deny the variance. Any discussion on the motion? Okay, then we will vote. We are voting yes or no, yay or nay in favor of denial. That's just so that you get your double negatives or positives in there. Okay. Ms. Kendall,
Yay, denial.
Ms.
Yay.
Wallen.
Yay.
I'll vote yay.
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 Okay, that's 6-0 in favor of denying the request for a variance of item number 2. Thank you, everyone, for your comments. Okay. Item number 3. Kristen Lamb Reilly requests a zone map amendment from the RC Residential Conservation Zone to the LDR Low Density Residential Zone in order to create a 2-lot subdivision located at 515 South, 700 East in the Mazer neighborhood. Mr. Pepperoni will present this one as well.
This has been kind of a difficult situation that's been going on for quite a while. Ms. Lamb purchased this property, the subject property, around February or March of 2020. And soon after that purchase, she came into the Development Services Office to find out what could be done with it, or had actually already been contemplating subdividing the property into 2 lots if she could get R16 rezoning. The R16 rezoning was being considered because the R1 zoning in the area is R16A. That's the zoning across the street diagonally. I lost my train of thought. Just a minute. Originally, Mrs. Lamb thought she had purchased 0.29 acres, which would have been sufficient to subdivide the property into 2 6,000 square foot lots. In meeting with her over the front counter, looking at the property and looking at her computer mapping, it appeared like something was off, and it didn't look like it was as big as what she thought she had bought. So I encouraged her to go back and talk to her title company, hire a surveyor if necessary, but to check the documents very carefully and see what exactly she had gotten. She ended up only purchasing 0.14 acres. She then spent time with staff talking about what are the alternatives that could be done within the existing RC zone. One of the alternatives in the RC zone is to build a house and have an ADU, accessory dwelling unit. Mrs. Lamb did pursue a building permit and got a building permit issued for a single family home and an accessory dwelling unit, a detached accessory dwelling unit. So the question before the Planning Commission is really a kind of a general one or high level one. The question before you is simply this. The property has been given a building permit for 2 homes. Right now it's a dwelling unit, a single family home, and an accessory dwelling unit. Okay. If a rezoning is granted and approved by the city council, the property could be subdivided in the LDR zone, and then there would be 2 single family homes. So the question is, which do you prefer? A single family home with an ADU, a detached ADU, which is under construction right now? Or do you prefer two separate dwelling units? This area in the neighborhood plan, this whole block is shown as the whole block where her property is located, plus the property to the south, is all shown in the neighborhood plan as multifamily. One of the statements in the neighborhood plan is to promote owner occupancy throughout the neighborhood. It could be argued that there's a greater chance of having owner occupancy in two detached single-family homes than in a home with an ADU. Okay. In the draft general plan, there's a goal that says promote neighborhood scale development in residential areas, including a mix of density, such as pocket neighborhoods, missing middle housing, and small lot single family. So staff felt like this was consistent with the direction we're going. You'll notice also from the map that there's MDR zoning across the street. There's MDR zoning to the north. Again, as I've said, this whole block is from 7th East over to State Street is intended to be multifamily someday. Now, there is an issue that is significant to the property owner and to the property owner to the east. It wasn't raised in your staff report because I questioned whether or not how relevant it was to a rezoning application. But that question to the two property owners is that there is a boundary line dispute going on between the two properties. That dispute is being litigated right now. That litigation may dictate moving the property line to the west. All right. Mrs. Lamb has been cautioned that should the property line move to the west, she still needs at least two 4,000 square foot lots for this to be an LDR subdivision. She understands that. We've also made it very clear that while this dispute is going on, until we have a clear definition of the result of that, the staff doesn't want to finalize the zone change. So should the city council approve the zone change, the staff won't finalize it until we have a resolution of that property line so we know exactly what it is we're rezoning. That's not unusual. Very often the city council approves a zone change, but the zone change does not become finalized for weeks or months until the developer has signed a development agreement and all the other staff work has been done and completed. Then we finalize the zone change. Okay. So that's not an unusual situation that we're suggesting we enter into. Right. I think that's all I had. The applicant is here and the neighboring property owner is here. So if I missed anything, I'm sure they'll correct me.
I have two clarifying questions to ask you. Is the existing building being demolished and two new homes are being built either way?
The existing building is down.
It's down.
And the new building is under construction. Now, I
Okay,
think
so
Mrs.
either
Lamb-
way, we're talking about two new structures.
Right.
Okay.
That's right.
And then the boundary line dispute, if it works out to not go in the property owner's best hopes, what's the smallest possible parcel they may end up with? Do you have a number for that? Because if it's smaller than 8,000, then having two 4,000 square foot lots would never happen, is why I'm wondering.
Again, the property owners can correct me if I'm wrong, but my understanding is the scenario that's being considered at this point is to move the property line 7.5 feet to the east, to the west. That still allows for the two
Okay.
4,000 plus square
So
foot lots
even
to
if
be
it
built.
shrunk with this dispute, it would still be large enough to do what's being asked.
Yes.
Okay.
And should it end up being more than that and we go below that threshold, then we wouldn't be able to finish the zone change. We wouldn't be able to complete the zone change.
Okay.
Okay.
Is the second home already being built also?
Yes, they're both under construction. Yeah.
Mr. Pepperoni, will both of them be this? So they'll both be the same regardless, same footprint, same everything. The question really is whether or not it's LDR or.
That's my understanding. Ms. Lamb can clarify that, but that's my understanding.
Are there any rules in the ADU requirements that the main dwelling and the accessory dwelling, like size comparison?
The only rule is that the accessory dwelling unit can't be larger than the main dwelling unit. In this case, I believe they're both the same size.
Okay.
Which is permitted under the rules, and that's allowed in the RC zone. And that's what you got a building permit for.
So
So just to, like, if we could simplify this issue down to the essential question, it's like, do we want one owner or two owners possibly?
Right. The real question is, do you want a lot line going between those two houses?
Yeah.
And the
LDR
possibility
zone
for an
allows-
additional owner.
Yeah, because
The
you can't have
LDR
a
zone
secondary
allows
owner
that,
for
the RC
ADUs.
would.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep. Got it.
Right.
Well,
And selfishly, from a point of view of my department, one reason we support the LDR is anytime there's a dwelling unit with an ADU, we have to make sure that the dwelling unit remains owner occupied, and that's where we end up having enforcement problems. So it takes an potential enforcement problem off the table as far as my department's concerned. Selfishly, that's.
But then they could
Pardon?
also be two rentals and they could have their own bucket of enforcement problems that would.
That could happen, yes. I don't deny that.
Miss
but
Kendall.
that's what would happen the other way too. Like that doesn't change.
Yeah,
that.
either way, it could be the
Yes.
same.
I do think that there's just on the opposite side of this, there's a little bit of danger in having lots of people then come in and want to parcel up their properties, right? To put two homes on their lot and say, well, then we all want to make them 4,000 square foot lots. However, this is already designated to be a multifamily. So I don't think we're overstepping the neighborhood plan by allowing something like this to happen. That's the plan going forward.
Yeah, in this case, the property owner is voluntarily doing less density than what they could do. Now, in order to do more density, you have to assemble a larger parcel. They want to actually do a multifamily project, you have to assemble more acreage. But yeah, this is less dense than what it could be.
Thank you. I have some comments that are related to the similarities with the rezone requests we heard at our last meeting, as far as the parcel size and the ideas, but I want to save those till after we've heard everything. So, all right. Are you Miss Lamb? It says Reilly. Are you Miss Reilly?
Yes.
Okay.
Lamb Reilly.
Lamb Reilly. Okay.
Yeah. So the history on this, just to give you an idea, is when I bought it, it was actually marketed on the MLS as 0.29 acres. And when I checked it at the county, it actually had Young's name with 0.29 acres. When it transferred into my name, it also had 0.29 acres. And the whole marketing of this property was can easily be subdivided, all of this. So I checked all of these things. So sadly, the history on this goes, there are errors that were tied to this long before me. And I ended up in the middle of a very messy situation, unwittingly, that's gone on for years. The reason that I was buying it, I had actually been looking for years for a piece of property that I could subdivide. And I apologize if I get emotional, but my husband passed away in a plane crash. And the funds that I was using for this was to find a way to give a kickstart to my two young married kids who were just getting married so that we could subdivide it. They would have a kickstart to their lives and go forward. So over the last 3 years, when it came to my attention after I bought it, that it wasn't as much as it was, and that there was also a boundary dispute that was not disclosed in any of the realty documents, that it was going to be a challenge. So we've tried to work through every possibility that there was to try and make this work. And Bill was kind enough to say, well, there is an LDR, and maybe we could do something like that. And so as we started working towards that and trying to clear up some of the boundary lines, and my neighbor who is here, he's had a boundary line issue with this for 21 plus years that I didn't know about at the time. And so the point that we're at this point, and we've tried to work things out on different points along the way, but where we're at today is there is sufficient land in what I have under this umbrella that I could move 7.5 feet to him without compromising the 8,000 square feet needed on the parcel, which would allow him and his wife to get closer to what they had thought over the last 21 years that had never been resolved. And the 7.5 feet was actually what he had suggested that we do. And we've figured out a way to make that happen. And we're just in the final phases of just putting all the dots together and the T's and everything necessary, and are tying that completion with this. And by splitting it and by putting that line in between what already will happen, it allows each of my kids to have the place, and or at some point, if it's sold, someone can owner occupy without it always being a rental, which was what we had hoped for in the beginning. When I talked to the neighborhood chair, I explained the situation to her, and her first thing was the neighbors are concerned that by having rentals, that makes for more of a transient neighborhood. And so her feeling was that this makes sense and supports the neighborhood plan and everything that they would want, because as a home independent, that it eliminates the forced rental for the rest of its life. So we're just trying to put closure to a long process. And we feel like we've met the requirements, and hopefully we can build a beautiful neighborhood together. So that was the plan.
Thank you.
When this started, Mrs. Lamb didn't know anything about zoning. Now she could be the staff planner.
Yeah, I got your back on all of that. I do know them all.
Any questions for the applicant? Okay, do we have a neighborhood chair here to speak to this item? How about any public comment? Tell us your name and address. We kind of know, but we need to know the details.
Thank you. Chad Hales. I own the property to the east of the project, 744 East, 500 South. Based on what I've heard tonight, fully support the project. I think the Planning Commission should approve what the staff has recommended. I do agree that having the LDR zone is completely fine. I think having two independently, potentially owner occupied properties there makes a lot of sense and is consistent with objectives. And it is, the LDR zone would be, as Mr. Pepperoni noted, consistent with the Mazer plan that's been approved, and it's a lower density than what could actually go there. So with, particularly given Mr. Pepperoni's comments tonight and Ms. Lamb's comments tonight, I'm fully comfortable with the Planning Commission moving forward. And I just note that I agree that if the boundary line is set 7.5 feet from the moving to the west, there would still be over 8,000 total square feet. So you would have more than enough to have two 4,000 square foot lots. And my only concern in speaking tonight, I just want to make sure that my rights were being protected. And I feel like Ms. Lamb has represented things fairly, and we are trying to work out the thing. And Mr. Pepperoni has indicated also what his staff plans to do just to make sure that project doesn't get ahead and prejudice us, but I'm fully comfortable with it. And I support the plan, and I thank the commissioners for their time and express our support in light of what's been said tonight for the project and the rezone.
Thank you. Any other public comment? All right, commissioners, do we have any questions or follow-up things that we just had ideas about that we needed to ask? Those are also questions, by the way. I just said them two different ways. Okay, discussion. I would like to point out how similar this is to the last one. The last one that we talked about was 0.22 acres, and this is 0.21 according to the staff report. It's asking to go from one zone to a low density residential. There was no neighborhood meeting, and the goals are still the same. However, my concerns about patchwork zoning that I always bring up when I go one little parcel at a time don't bother me here, because what it's adjacent to is even higher density. And so I feel like it's a very logical step down. In regards to no neighborhood meeting, the neighborhood chair actually said she didn't think there needed to be one. So unlike the last one, she actually responded and had addressed it. And one of the goals in the plan was to address affordable housing and owner occupancy, and it has the potential to do that. There's no guarantee. I'm always concerned about a request setting a precedent, or I know we talked about this last time. It doesn't actually set a precedent if we review everything independently, but people get an idea and then all of a sudden everyone wants to. There's a potential that in the future, somebody could knock this down, and because it's low density residential, they could want to do something higher density. But I think if it's subdivided into 2 lots, that is such a minimal risk that none of this bothers me. So unlike my concerns with the last request that was very similar to this, I feel like this meets all the intent of why these rules are in place. Those are my comments on the ideas. Anyone else? Mr. Knutson.
I would second what you just said. I drove by there today. The only question I had was until I got there, and then I realized I was a little bit, when I looked at the architecture of the homes that were being built, on the last page.
You were afraid it wouldn't fit in with the
Right,
neighborhood?
I was afraid it wouldn't fit in with the neighborhood. But then then when I got there and drove by, I noticed to the north, there's some apartment houses or whatever they are, condos that look very much the same, very much similar. So that put my thought about that to rest. I feel about the way you do that. I think it's a good idea.
Okay, thank you. Mr. South, Mr. Whitlock, any comments, discussion? Ladies?
I would agree with what you've said also. And like I've expressed, I think there are differences from the last one, which make me very comfortable in saying yes to this one.
Yeah.
The difference is that the neighborhood plan actually clearly says that this is the intention. So
Yes.
that makes it easy for me.
And this is kind of one of those jump up and down with excitement when the zoning policies actually seem to be doing what we wanted them to do, which is bring it all together, make a nice neighborhood, give owner occupancy, revitalize neighborhoods. I feel like this is doing all those things. So, okay.
Great to see the public working together on it as well.
Yeah.
In this forum. So I think
You guys could
the
be
whole
mad at
process-
each other, but you're friends. Mostly.
It'll all work out when it's done. We can be back to.
Okay. Do we want to have a motion? Does anyone want to make a motion? Ms. Wallen.
Okay, I motion.
Okay, let me just remind you before you say it. This is a legislative item, so we are making a recommendation to the city council for whatever you say next.
Okay, we recommend to the city council, staff recommends that we recommend the approval of the zone change from residential conservation, RC, to low density residential, 4.21 acres located at 515 South 700 East, Mazer neighborhood with.
Nope, that's good. Okay, the motion made by Ms. Wallen was to recommend to the city council approval of this zone change as stated in item number 3. Do I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Knutson with the second. Any discussion on the motion? Okay. Ms. Kendall?
Aye.
Ms. Wallen?
Aye.
I will vote aye. Mr. Knutson?
Aye.
Mr. Whitlock?
Aye.
Mr. South?
Aye.
All right, we have 6 votes in favor of forwarding a positive recommendation to the city council for this zone change request. Thank you. I just regurgitate. Did a good job. That's good. Okay. Item number 4. This is also legislative, so we'll be making a recommendation to the city council. And if anyone wants to know why these are legislative instead of administrative, it's because they're changing the ordinance language. So that's why we don't have the final say. All right, item 4, the Development Services Department requests a general plan amendment to adopt the Southwest Neighborhood Plan. This involves Lakewood, Sunset, Provo Bay, and Fort Utah neighborhoods. So, but it has citywide application, and Mr. Weaver is standing there creepily ready to go. I was ready to look around for you. Like, are you ready to come up? No, that wasn't really creepy. Okay. He's ready.
I'm ready. Thanks. I'm excited to be here tonight. So we talked about this about a month ago in Planning Commission as a study session item, and I'm going to update you from what's happened since then, and then we can move forward on that. Since then, it's been an open city hall, and there have been 9 views, but nobody has listed any public comment. I have sent it out to all of the commissioners, and I got comments from Chair Jensen, and I got comments from Raylene today. And I sent it out to all 4 neighborhood chairs, and I received comments from Lakewood neighborhood chair, who's also here tonight. And I've incorporated that feedback into the text now. Now, in the staff report, it does say at the very end that there would be revisions post the publication of the staff report. What was distributed to you today is the most up-to-date neighbor plan for document of this neighborhood plan. And I'm going to go through this page by page and verbalize what changes you will see within the document, so you are aware of these changes. It's pretty much cosmetic, but there are a couple updates in here that I will elaborate on. The first thing, we just changed it from neighborhood to neighborhoods. Really simple. Second, on the right side, we added a page for historic preservation. Some of these may be really minimal on changes. On this page, primarily formatting and adding it back to being southwest neighborhoods with an S. This page had no change other than formatting. And I will say on your printed copy that I gave you today, already when things got switched over, somehow it added extra underline somewhere. Those have already been changed out of it, so that has already been fixed. Leave on. This page, all it was primarily a graphic or a picture of Duncan that was updated today and of the airport.
What did you say about the underline?
When it was extracted, it made some things
okay.
underlined,
Okay.
but that has been changed back to not being underlined.
Okay, thank you.
On this page, the transportation master plan is the main thing that was updated. This graphic here, the previous document had the old graphic. This has been updated to our current 2020 transportation master plan. This page, I don't believe anything was changed. On this page, the top paragraph, starting at character, that was originally in the existing characteristics, and I felt based on the description of it, it would be best suited within the future land use characteristics, so we just shifted it on where it was. In commercial, under mixed use and neighbor mixed use, we added in the text that these need to have a density of 30 units per acre or 12 dwelling units. That's based off the MDR and LDR for these areas. On this page, the graphic at the top left, that was already amended to have it all being commercial. This is just updating the graphic to remove that LDR node. On the right side, we have Big Dry Creek, and the graphic also says Big Dry Creek now. That was rectified. I don't believe anything on this page, robust. On this, again, we updated Big Dry Creek for that area and the commercial node. Now this page, we do have some new things. On the right side, trails. We talk about 1150 or Big Dry Creek and 1150 South. I'm going to switch over to the next page. In TMAC, we talked about this area. I'm going to jump back for a second. On this future land use map, you can see there's a green dash that goes along Dry Creek, and then there's a green dash line from Big Dry Creek going westward to 2050 West, and then a green dashed line that goes from 6 South to Lakeview Parkway, and also from roughly 900 South. That road is not listed nor built yet, so roughly 900 South. This would have a larger sidewalk along this area, and that is what the second graphic on the left, 1150 South, that's what that cross section shows. So that would have a 10-foot sidewalk that would act as a multi-use path going along that area. Now, in the Big Dry Creek area, we would have a trail system along that area, and the top graphic shows what that trail system would be. On the right side, this is new as well. This was not included in what was published, is this historic preservation. We have a lot of work to do in this area. Last time a survey was completed was in 2007, and looking at data as of today, yesterday, I didn't feel comfortable putting in hard data until we know for sure. These are historic properties, these are not, but there's some great potential in this area. And last on this page, the implementation matrix includes the historic preservation. Now, I did hear back from the Lakewood neighborhood chair, and I just want to go through a couple of the comments that she made notes of. One was talking about the LDR node with the commercial part, the FC3 that we rezoned, that was fixed. One question she had was in the report, when I did the report for existing characteristics, it said that we only have 8 active rental dwelling licenses in the neighborhood. She thought that seemed low, but that is what we showed current for within our reports. I think the other comments that I received from the Lakewood neighborhood chair, I have addressed. Are there any questions for staff?
I have a few errors I just found.
Please.
That's probably a surprise.
No, I was expecting that.
You guys have to know that Mr. Weaver and I talked about this for 2 hours, I think, on the phone. So these are easy ones. On page 25, historic preservation is missing an E. And also on the implementation schedule chart, it's missing the same E. So I don't know what you have against E's in the middle of historic preservation, but you need to just suck it up and put them in there.
Thank you.
And then the other two, it looks like the bottom of page 17 is missing a line of text. I know sometimes it gets swallowed up, but it doesn't seem to end. The sentence doesn't. Oh, wait, it does. It involves local residents. Never mind, it's there. Found it. And what was the other one? This is just a formatting thing. Page 8 looks like residential is supposed to have a return after it, a hard return.
I made note of that as well. Thank you.
Otherwise, it looks awesome. Commissioners, any comments or questions for Mr. Weaver? Okay. Thank you. We will entertain public comment. Neighborhood chair first, followed by all the other people in the room. No, you get to go first. It's okay.
I want to go last. You go first. I'll go second. I've heard that Dave really doesn't like this plan very well. No, I like this plan. We've been waiting for this for a really, really long time. There's a lot of things that I really appreciate about it. I appreciate it has the parks in there. I appreciate that Javin took my comments seriously. Lisa, if I ever write a book, I'm going to have you preview it and make sure all my errors are correct.
I don't be careful what you ask for.
The one thing that I do ask is in light of Beth Alligood, the one thing that she fought for really hard was design standards for the dwellings. And that's something I didn't see. The west side, we do struggle with a good connotation. And the one thing that she was really concerned about, and it does concern me too, is that we won't get as quality of units as we deserve. And so some design standards, if it's not in this, if it comes very soon, would be very, very much appreciated. So thanks for all your hard work. Thanks for this. It's been a long time coming. And thanks for everything.
Thank you. Mr. Weaver, do you want to address whether that's a realistic thing to put in an area plan, design standards? That seems like something that maybe is more of just a general zoning guideline.
Yeah, so our existing code does, we do have residential design standards. Some of our neighbor plans may have some updated standards, but I might defer this to Bill on why we removed that on, but we talked about this, but not.
The question, if you didn't hear it, was whether design standards is realistic to put in an area plan, or if that's something that's taken care of by the existing zoning standards.
So there already are design standards for the LDR nodes and the MDR node that's up at Center Street and Geneva Road. So the highest density areas, we already have design standards in our ordinance. I really question the utility in having design standards for the single family homes that are all that light yellow RES area on your map. There are already significant development obstacles on the west side that Ms. Bogdan is very familiar with, being a resident over there. And I was very hesitant to put design standards on single family homes and increase those obstacles, or what would be perceived as obstacles, by the building and development community. So I feel safe that the highest density areas have strong design standards already. I hesitate to put those on single family homes.
I also wonder if that would be counterproductive to the other goals of making housing affordable, and the limitations on lot sizes and the number of units is already going to dictate how expensive a house needs to be. So
that's a good point.
I have a question. Aren't there already some basic design standards that prevent people from doing wonky things even with a single family home?
Wonky is the language in the ordinance, of course.
Well, I can show you a picture of wonky.
We know what wonky is.
Aren't there already some standards that would prevent really outrageous things from being done?
Not in the single family zones. There's unit size, there's building height, but as far as building materials and those kinds of things, not in the single family zones. Now, there may be individual neighborhoods that have protective covenants that do exactly that. That's not at all unusual, but those type of standards are not in the zoning ordinance.
And to be fair, those special standards don't exist anywhere in the city unless they're in a neighborhood's covenants and restrictions. So
thankfully,
and
not
some
too
have
many
significant
people
ones.
do that.
Okay. Any other questions for staff? Okay. Our job here tonight is to determine whether this is ready to send on to the city council. So if we would like to discuss that further, we can. Otherwise, we can entertain a motion of whether we're comfortable recommending that. Mr. Knutson, I heard you say something.
Like me to make a motion?
Sure.
Okay, I would make a motion that we send a positive endorsement of item number 4 to the municipal council. Development Services Department requests a general plan amendment to adopt the Southwest Neighborhood Plan, Lakewood, Sunset, Provo Bay, and Fort Utah neighborhoods, citywide application.
Okay, Mr. Knutson has made a motion to forward a positive recommendation to the city council for item number 4.
I'll second that.
We have a second by Mr. Whitlock. Any discussion on the motion? Okay, we're going to start with you, Ms. Kendall.
Yay.
She wanted to say aye and yay at the same time.
It gets me every time.
Aye, please.
Aye by Ms. Kendall.
Aye.
Ms. Wallen said aye. I vote aye.
Aye.
Mr. Knutson, aye. Mr.
Aye.
Whitlock.
Aye.
Mr. South said aye. That is 6 votes in favor of forwarding a positive recommendation to the city council for item number 4. That concludes the fun this evening. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
I would motion to adjourn.
Mr. Whitlock gets to go home and babysit. All in favor? Aye.
You made it, Jeff.
Was that an eye that you have to go home and babysit? They don't want you anymore? Or was that an eye that it's all over?